Are you tired of beating your head against a wall, but you just don't really know where to start? First off, let me just say, if you're feeling burned out and stuck, you're definitely not alone. You've probably spent years building your career, and maybe you're struggling with some conflicting thoughts or feelings about making a big change, because it is a good job, and it could be worse. Today, we're gonna get into the top 5 reasons people stay stuck, and we're gonna get you moving again. Hi, I'm Courtney, and I created Desk to Dream to help other millennials escape their 9-to-5 jobs so that they can pursue their dream lives. So let's start off with a biggie. Most of us have actually spent years crafting and honing skills to support our corporate careers, only to be completely left unfulfilled or just over it. But we get stuck because we don't know what else we could actually even do. Maybe you're struggling because you know what you don't want to keep doing, but you have a lack of clarity, or it's a little bit harder to put your finger on what you might want to actually go and do. Or maybe it's showing up in your life as analysis paralysis, where it's just overwhelmed. You have a lot of options, but you can't make a next move because you're just kind of stuck. Or maybe you're like me and you have a little bit of FOMO. There were so many things outside of my corporate experience that focusing on just one thing felt like it was at the expense of everything else, and I was missing out on all these other great opportunities. And this is very real, so we need to acknowledge it. It could also be that you are genuinely just too tired and exhausted to try and figure out all of your options. You just simply haven't had the capacity to entertain what a new future could even look like. But the best way to get through these hurdles is to move through them. And with just a couple of steps, you can actually get quite a bit of traction. This is a shameless plug for my Career Clarity Compass. It's a 7-page, 60-minute exercise that will help walk you through some steps to help you get some clarity and get unstuck and get on the path again. If this is something that interests you, please feel free to grab a copy at desktodream.com. It's free, or it's linked in the description below. Okay, so now we're on number 2. Maybe what's holding you back isn't actually indecision at all. But it's another very real thing that we can't ignore, and that's the financial impact of potentially making a big change. So we can't ignore that even if you know what your dream job is, that if you don't have enough money coming in to cover you, it's not gonna be sustainable and it's not gonna work. I'm not gonna lie or try to downplay this. This could potentially be a big hurdle. But I am gonna say it's probably not actually the math that's holding you back on this, because there actually are tactical strategies and solutions available here. And as we all know, the aisles of Barnes & Noble and the internet are filled with financial advice and strategy. So the real reason that people typically get stuck when it comes to the money part of all of this is the mental story that they have with regard to money doesn't support making this transition yet. So the key is to start developing a different mental story and to make the decision that it is possible and that you can find a way. And you might not know what that plan looks like today, but if you start to understand what your personal financial situation looks like, as well as what your risk profile looks like, meaning how you feel about assuming risk in a situation and taking risks, you can build a path forward. This is actually a really good time that I'm going to bring up a book that I absolutely love. I actually have 2 copies of it. This is the one I bought 20 years ago, and this is the most recent copy that's been updated. It's called Your Money or Your Life, and it's by Vicki Robin. Originally, it was her and her partner, Joe Dominguez, that wrote this book, I don't know, in the 90s. It's really helped me understand money in a different way. And what I love about this book is it has tactical habits that you can adopt immediately if you want to. But the biggest takeaway that I got from this book was the emphasis it puts on being able to spend the money that you make in ways that bring you personally the most value, as opposed to like the ways that you think you're supposed to be spending money. Essentially, spend more on what brings you joy and happiness and less on what doesn't. I have to admit that I actually hate books about money like this because I always thought they were about shame and deprivation, but this one isn't that. And it kind of takes the grossness out of the conversation when that kind of persists around money. So I highly recommend it. I will probably read this book multiple times in my life. It's just a really great book and gives you tons of information that you can adopt what works for you and leave what doesn't. But I highly recommend it. Okay, so we're on to number 3. So here's where I have a little bit of a rant, because I don't know when or why we collectively decided that your job has to be your identity and to mean that that's who you are as a person. It's a lie. And we all know it's a lie, but so many of us let it hold us back, myself included. So if you're struggling with thoughts like, I don't want to have to start all over, or, but I've already invested so much, or, but what will people think? I completely get it. Like, those statements feel incredibly valid when you say them. But again, these are just stories that we're telling ourselves. And we just need to start telling ourselves different stories. One way to do that is called flipping the script. It's a technique that you probably have already heard of, but if you haven't, essentially what you're doing is you're taking a statement that feels true and you're rewriting it in a way in your mind or on paper or somewhere, you're restating it in a different way that also feels true, that actually supports what you want to go and do. So here are some examples. The statement, "I don't want to have to start all over," can become, "I'm starting out with a strong foundation of skills and experience that are going to allow me to adapt and learn quickly at whatever I go and do next." And yes, that's wordy and you can get to a more succinct way of saying it, but essentially that's the idea. You're just taking a statement that doesn't work for you and you're transferring it into a statement that does work for you, that also feels true or can start to feel true, because that's kind of part of it. Like if you're telling yourself a lie and you can never get into it, you're not really reworking the unconscious pattern in your mind related to that belief that's entrenched. So let's go through another one. "I've invested so much already" becomes, if something isn't working, spending more time on it will not make it work. It's okay to make a different decision and to do something different. And for the worst of all, what will people think? You just need to remind yourself that this is your life, and how are you going to feel about yourself if you never even try? Such a big part of getting unstuck is rooted in the stories that we've adopted unconsciously. And now we just have to tell ourselves new stories and to put a little bit of effort into correcting the stories that don't support us and building stories that do support us. Okay, so number 4. You're probably thinking, okay, this is great, Courtney, but the world doesn't revolve around me and I have external obligations and responsibilities that I have to consider when I'm making a big change in my life. And you're absolutely right. We all have these people that matter to us and commitments that we've made to ourselves and to others that we have to consider as we move forward. But those are really not the things that are keeping you stuck. What's keeping you stuck is this idea that whatever it is that you want to go and do has to happen at the expense of something else. And while it's true, it's not really true, because if you're moving towards your goal, you're going to be leaving behind things that don't serve you any longer, and you're going to be moving towards and adopting things that do serve you. And generally the people in our lives want us to lead fulfilling and meaningful lives and careers. So yes, things are going to go away, but it's not going to have to be like you letting down the people in your life that matter the most to you. One of the best things that you can do is to just start building a plan to begin with and figuring out what that next step is, because you can make this transition take as long as it needs to take to support all of the things in your life that matter to you. Now, before I get into the biggest reason that people stay stuck, and before I forget to mention it again, like I have in several other videos, I do have the Career Clarity Compass. It's linked in the description below, or it's available at desktodream.com. It's a free exercise. And it's a worksheet just to help you start asking yourself questions in a way that will allow you to filter down into what your next step needs to be. And if you'd like to see more of this type of content, this is a new channel, so please like and subscribe. It definitely helps. All right, so we've come to the last reason, and I would argue probably the biggest reason that people stay stuck. There is really no reason to beat around the bush on this one. The simple fact is that fear keeps most of us stuck far more than anything else. How could it not? There's so many valid fears. The fear of failure, for one, or maybe that you're gonna end up worse off in the end, or that people are gonna judge and reject you. That never feels good. There's always a little bit of fear when there's uncertainty and you can't see the next steps in the path ahead. Or maybe you have the fear that you're going to be disappointed about the other side, or worse yet, you might be disappointing to other people. Or maybe you're just afraid of losing everything. The point is, there is a lot to be afraid of, and some of it actually makes sense. So I'm not going to try to downplay that fear is a very real part of any major life change or transition. But the truth is, you can't actually get to where you want to go by staying where you're at. So we have to move forward. And we can do that by getting more clarity and orienting ourselves in the direction that we want to go. We continue to build our financial runway and our roadmaps, and we rely on our social networks. We just got to take it step by step. And with that, I'm going to leave you with a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the next step. As always, I hope this has been helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much.